India on one side wants to focus on Atmanirbharata, and at the same time, we are not supporting protectionism. So we are more interested in signing trade agreements with individual countries where both these aspects are protected together.
What should a country prefer to, or what should a country look forward to when it is signing an FTA? It has to focus on its strengths. Where can we play on our strengths? If I'm a middleweight category boxer, I can't be competing in the heavyweight category.
Adhering to the climate requirements or adhering to those technologies where you're trying to go green. So this is a little difficult for India.
Trade of 54 to 56 billion dollars with UK. So we are expecting it to reach 120 billion dollars.
Hello and welcome to the Perspective by Vision IAS, where we bring important happenings around the world and in India. Today we will discuss about India-UK Free Trade Agreement, an agreement that has been in making for last 3 years. And to talk about it, we have today an esteemed faculty member, Aditya sir, Brijesh sir and Ram sir. Welcome you all. So Ram sir, before we start, some are saying that this trade agreement is a turning point vis-a-vis India's trade diplomacy as well as our global positioning. So can you throw some light about it?
Yeah, definitely. So this trade agreement is little different from the earlier trade agreements. One is it was being negotiated since very long, first thing. And now what we observe is UK after the exit of Brexit, and India, we know that India is out of RCEP. So both had their own intentions in terms of strategizing their trade policies. So one important observation is India on one side wants to focus on Atmanirbharata, and at the same time, we are not supporting protectionism. So we are more interested in signing trade agreements with individual countries where both these aspects are protected together. So this is what is clearly visible in this trade agreement. So what I clearly observe here is, so on one side we are signing free trade agreements with countries. So generally what we say is free trade agreement may not be for the benefit of everybody, especially the developing nations. But thinkers like David Ricardo, they always keep saying that no, free trade always benefits both the countries who are involved. So this agreement looks more closer somewhat to David Ricardo's principles in terms of the way they have negotiated, and at the same time the exclusions and inclusions they have done with respect to the agreement. So I think these are the two things that will differentiate this agreement from the earlier agreements which we can see.
Aditya sir?
Yeah, adding to what sir has just mentioned, certainly we many times say that free trade is beneficial for all, it benefits everybody. But one, we must recognize the reality of what we sometimes call as creative destruction. So free trade agreements basically lead to creation and destruction. The competitive or the strongest ones survive, the weak ones perish. But yes, what should a country prefer to, or what should a country look forward to when it is signing an FTA? It has to focus on its strengths. Where can we play on our strengths? If I'm a middleweight category boxer, I can't be competing in the heavyweight category. But I must be ensuring that I win those matches where I can compete with. So most of the times when trade agreements happen, they happen on a likewise basis. In the sense, countries are on similar level of development. India should not have a problem in signing an FTA with, let's say, Bangladesh or Nepal or Bhutan, or for that matter, let's say even Vietnam, for example. But when it comes to UK is in all aspects technologically far advanced than us, far more industrial society than us. So when we are signing up, we are aspiring for competing with a higher technologically advanced country. We have to make sure that this is going to be never benefit. So this trade agreement provides that template, so as to say, as in we can move towards opening up our borders to trade, at the same time keeping each step in a careful manner. Sir said it has been long in making, you also introduced it has been long in making. In fact, it's long in making, not just, it did not start in 2021 or let's say post-Brexit in 2017. When UK was part of European Union, we were negotiating a FTA with the European Union, and that was because UK chose to exit from Brexit. Now we had to negotiate two FTAs. So it has been a long-standing issue, and from long time we were discussing what to keep, what not to keep, and this provides a template, so as to say, for that. So it provides us, if I use the word in conclusion, it provides us basic building blocks that we can use these basic building blocks to enter into larger FTA with the rest of the world. So it sets a template.
And as the world become more multipolar,
Oh yes, certainly.
it will become a template.
Yes, yes, yes.
Vijay sir, as sir has pointed out, and we have all talked a lot about, is that it has been in making for 3 years now. So trail us through this journey of negotiation of these 3 years. Like, what were the issues that were deliberated, and like what happened in those negotiations?
Yes, it has taken more than 3 years. This agreement, the negotiation, started in 21 itself, but formally it started in 22 January. And in 22 and 23, more than 14 rounds of negotiations were there. And after then, what happened in 24, because of the general elections, it stopped. And during these negotiations also, like 14, 15 rounds were there. In those rounds, some issues were there with respect to like whiskey tariffs, then the tax on the workers, the visa rules, among others. So on these issues, there was not agreement made. And after then, what happened? These 24 general elections. In 25, in Jan, it started again. And finally, what happened? Both the countries, they came into agreement in May. And finally, what happens in July, 24th July, the agreement was signed. And after this also, I think one more year it will take, because the parliaments also, they need to rectify it. So this is all how it started and how this agreement came into this final things.
Ram sir, there were also hiccups in these negotiations. Can you throw some light on those?
Yeah, before talking about hiccups, there were also some very good positive things when it comes to this agreement. For example, one is with respect to the labor intensive sectors, one is the textiles. So, textile is one such area where almost like 12 to 15% of the tariffs were there earlier. Now it is coming at zero. And one more thing is like textiles is a labor intensive sector. So, therefore, there is a higher scope of employment creation in India. So not only textiles but also pharma. Pharma is another area where there is a higher scope, and there's more FDI investment that can move into India because of this agreement. And India is also good in services as well. But of course, there are some hiccups, especially with respect to few things which we were negotiating a little longer. Of course, that is one important area is something related to the go green technologies. So accessing European markets, there are some regulatory constraints. So these regulatory constraints, adhering to these regulatory constraints is little difficult for Indian MSMEs. And MSMEs again are very important for us because they are building blocks for inclusive growth. So that is one important area for our MSMEs. And second important aspect is adhering to the climate requirements or adhering to those technologies where you are trying to go green. So this is a little difficult for India moving forward. Okay, so these are some areas, but we have negotiated it well, and we have come up with a tariff also in a regulated manner. For example, when we talk about liquor, okay, so though we have reduced it tariffs on liquor from 150% to 75 immediately when you talk about scotch. But at the same time, we said it will be over a period of time that we will slowly get it down to somewhere like 40%. But when it comes to again, when it comes to automobiles, where the luxury cars which are going to come down to India from UK, so that is an advantageous space for UK obviously. But at the same time, we are not going to reduce it immediately. So there are QR restrictions, quantitative restrictions also as well, but they are going to be done in a phased manner over a period of time. So this shows that government has taken some caution in terms of liberalizing norms. And that's the reason I was talking about, like, yes, Atmanirbharata on one side and a phased manner of reduction of tariffs and QRs over a period of time. So I think they've done it well as of now. But how it is going to get into action, that's something which we have to see.
Aditya sir, as sir has talked about some sectors that may be benefited, right? So what are these, especially those traditional sectors? So, what will be the impact of this FTA on the traditional sectors, and what can be the positives we can look?
Yeah, sure. Building upon what Sir just said. So, if you look at, let's take a step back and see, let's say, why did India not sign RCEP? We did not become part of RCEP, or why? What is so different about this? Then we start to understand the sectoral aspects over here. At a very broad level, you can say, okay, agriculture, industry, services, but then agriculture is not one agriculture. You'll have so many things, marine fisheries and all those things. They're part of agriculture. Industry, we have MSMEs, bigger firms, labor intensive, capital intensive, textile. There are so many things in. So it would be unfair to simply paint them in under one brush. So you look at RCP, for example. RCP, we had some issues that, for example, services was not a part of RCP. India's experience with previous FTAs. We did sign many. We did sign one with South Korea in 2008 or 9, with Japan in 2011. We did sign previous FTAs. But those FTAs we evaluated, were not so beneficial for us. We signed a SEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership with ASEAN countries, not so beneficial for us. Why? Because the sectors in which we liberalized, those sectors favored the other countries, versus those countries put up, for example, qualitative restrictions upon us. Japan says sanitary phytosanitary measures. So our products fail on the quality category, and hence FTA is useless for us in that case. Or let's say South Asian countries say we are not going to be importing services because that's not part of FTA. So FTA becomes useless for us, kind of. Not exactly useless, that a bit harsh word, but still our imports from those countries grew a lot faster as compared to our exports to those countries. So trade deficit ballooned. Now, when you look at UK's FTA, so we have been mindful of these things. So, दूध का जला छाछ भी फूक फूक के पीता है वाली बात है. तो we have been more careful in these things this time. So now when you look at sectors, so automobile, as sir just pointed out. So in a phased manner, we are saying that okay, we are going to be importing automobiles from UK. We are going to reduce the duties upon them, but not immediately, but in a phased manner. Plus, that comes with quantitative restrictions also, as in, just for example, that we'll be allowed to import, I think the number is 30,000, 32,000 at the peak, and then will reduce to around 15,000 cars in around 6 years. I'm not sure about those numbers. But the point is, let's say after 5 years, tax duty falls to 10%, but the number of cars that we can import will be around 16,000 cars. So it's trying to balance, it's trying to give Indian firms time to adjust about these changes. So sectorally, that is the benefit. Or you look at from India's perspective to export what we are exporting to them. Bangladesh enjoys zero tariffs with UK and Europe under the generalized system of preferences that US has, and similar provisions which are there in US and UK, in UK and Europe. So 0% taxes on Bangladeshi textiles to these countries, and wherever you go in Europe or UK, you'll see made in Bangladesh textiles. Indian textile face around 15 to 20% duty. Now they are subject to 0% tax. So that is the sectoral advantage. Same thing with healthcare, also sir pointed out. So in healthcare, our Indian firms' medicines are now open for procurement under their NHS system. So NHS is National Health Services. So when government doctors prescribe medicines, they were prescribing only medicines that were allowed in UK. Now Indian medicines can also be prescribed, and hence there is a huge potential of exports to those countries. Same thing with marine products also. So there are a lot of sectoral advantages that we have. And in terms of, as I started with automobile, in terms of what we are importing from there, there is a phased manner of free trade. So all in all, I see that it's going to be probably it's going to be beneficial for us, and at the same time, we are going to open up benefits to our consumers, industries. Obviously, UK will also see benefits to its consumer industries, benefits to both in a mutually beneficial manner. That's what I see, sector by sector.
Brijesh sir, like adding to what sir has already said, are there some non-traditional sectors that will also benefit from this agreement?
See, we can have the example of engineering products. We can have example of these IT and services already sir has mentioned. These are basically non-traditional categories. Like in engineering products, what happens? Like for example, auto parts. So what happens? UK imports a lot of products, these auto parts, for which they have reduced the tariff from 18% to 0. So India can take up that share. And also, like sir mentioned about the traditional part, that is textile sector. So for that, the data is like we are competing with Bangladesh, Cambodia, other countries. So UK is importing like $26 billion out of which we are having the share of like $1.9 billion, something like that. So we can increase that share. And textile sector, there are a lot of advantage also, because it can generate a lot of employment also. That is like that point which I have added in that traditional part. And in this non-traditional part, that engineering products, and apart from that, IT services. So in IT services, what they have done, like that uh, tax which UK collects from the workers, the individuals who are living there, doing business or working there. IT professionals, we can take example. So if they are temporary workers, so if they are living less than 36 months, so they don't have to pay any tax. So this is going to provide a lot of benefit for Indian companies. So in the volume of, we can say, the value, more than 4,000 crore they can save because of this measurement. So these are also the things which are beneficial for India.
Ram sir, we have already talked about what UK will gain in terms of manufacturing of cars and spirits also we have talked about. So, but other than that, like looking at the broader picture, like UK exited EU, and then there has been a lot of outflow of, let's say, capital and businesses also from the UK. So, in that broader picture, how does or what does UK gain from this FTA?
Actually, one important observation for UK. So we can look at more investments which UK can do, especially the technology related aspects. So these technology related aspects as well as services also. So high technology products, etc. UK can focus on Indian markets. There's a evolving market in India. We can say that there's a readily available market in India. So these extensions are very much possible for UK right now. Okay, another important observation for UK is, again, as we have discussed, the high-end cars. These high-end cars, the margins are quite high. So, and as we can see, the incomes increasing in India, there's a higher demand for these items. So, therefore, UK can also definitely capitalize on this aspect. Okay, so another important observation here is both the countries very cautiously have decided in this agreement, especially with respect to services aspect also. When you look at WTO's GATS agreement, so there is one mode which is called mode 4. We always are worried with respect to this. That is about the movement of human capital. Okay, so there are some thought processes getting in, and the way we are going to liberalize norms with respect to movement of labor as well as the taxes part. So definitely there can be a higher contribution of Indian labor in UK that will definitely help in the growth of UK. So these are some minute points which are also there as far as the deal is concerned.
Aditya sir, would you like to add something to what UK would gain out of this?
Certainly, yes. If you look at, as sir both have pointed out regarding, like Brijesh sir was saying about taxes that Indians have to pay over there. So it's like there is a mandatory contribution for every person to their social schemes. So anybody who is working in UK has to contribute. So Indians going there for, let's say, working for 5 months, 6 months, TCS sending some employees, they would draw salaries in UK, but some part of that would go to UK's pension funds for its citizens. Now, if an Indian was supposed to live there for his entire life, maybe an Indian, maybe a UK, but let's say is a resident of UK, he would get those benefits. But if I'm supposed to come back in 2 years, why should I contribute to that? Why should I be contributing? So now those kind of contributions they would go down. So how does this benefit UK, for example? On face of it, let's say there is a monetary loss to them, but at the same time, now they can get far more cheaper would be the wrong word, but for lack of a better word, I may use this thing. They would more firms would be willing to send their workers to UK, and that means UK would be able to avail these services. You go to UK and you look at NHS. I talked about health services over there. NHS in UK, if you go there, many doctors, nurses are of Indian origin there. So it's not just IT services, it's their healthcare services also. You look at most of the real estate services in UK. Again, you'll find that many of the people over there are of Indian origin. I don't know how many citizens are there, but they are of Indian origin. The point is, many of these services in UK, which are labor intensive, the UK is set to gain a lot from them. apart from the conventional automobile sector or let's say alcohol, they are going to gain, as India being the largest alcohol market by volume. So UK's spirits would find it easier to as in come over here. So there are a lot of gives and takes, and in this case we would like to focus on the takes as in the wins. So India sets to gain and UK sets to gain from these things. Naturally there would be some challenges, political challenges would be there, some resistances from those who lose out would be there. But as a leader, a prime minister would look at the broader picture, whether my country is broadly gaining upon my strength or not. So UK sets to gain from these things. One last point, even if UK were to run a trade deficit with India, which it already does, but to run trade deficit, that may evolve into or that may transcend into India's investments to UK, not just UK's investments in India, India's investments to UK. US, for example, runs the largest trade deficit in the world. But at the same time, US's trade deficit has to be balanced. By definition, it will be balanced by foreigners investing into US. So China holds, for example, or Japan holds US government bonds. So they lend basically all the surplus, they lend it back to American government. Same thing with UK also. If UK runs a trade deficit with India, so that money would eventually find its way back to UK on capital account this time, on capital account, but UK government gets to borrow on easy terms and spend money on an easier term. So obviously there is going to be winning for both countries on these parts. We see what the strengths we have, what objectives we have. Given that India has large population, young population, UK has an aging population, they would like to ensure that services are provided to them. Similarly, we would like to make sure that our youth gets jobs. So each country has its own objectives. We can't, last point, we can't be comparing India's objectives with whether UK will win or not. We have to compare on like by like countries' demands and whether they are able to fulfill those demands or not.
And this is one important key point. Like India always had this grievance vis-a-vis the Western countries that they are very open when it comes to trade of goods or capital, but when it comes to human resource, they are very restrictive. So it becomes a good opening for us.
Certainly, yes. One, because you've touched upon this thing, we have seen what is happening in US over the tariff part. So till the time free trade was benefiting them, they were all for that we should be doing free trade. And now when some political person comes in and sees, okay, now we have a trade deficit with the rest of the world without seeing the current accounts capital surplus they have, now they say no, we are going to impose tariffs. So it has always been this. There has always been political give and take or political concerns with respect to these trade deals. And going ahead, we hope that UK being a more mature democracy, the older one or democratic setup, probably they're going to see to the benefits that they get.
I want to add one point here. Like you are saying, they are very this thing about like labor movement, free labor movement. So for that, it's not like UK has freed it. So they have put quotas on it, like this liberalized movement of labor, like 1800 per year or something like that. Beyond that, you need to follow all the conditions which were earlier.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. Like immigration for them, it is very difficult.
Like we have for cars, put them quotas.
Like
They have put
the same way they have put quota
work,
on the
yes.
labor, the number of laborers.
So it's a very slow movement.
So 1800 or 18,000, it is what for India?
Vijay sir, one thing more, like as you said right now only, so do you see it delivering the gains that we are talking about this FTA?
See, we need to see for like coming 4-5 years how we are going to execute it. But what we have expected, like in till 2030, right now we are having trade of 54 to 56 billion dollars with UK. So we are expecting it to reach 120 billion dollars. So more than double. So if all the things goes well, we can achieve that. And with that, we can have a lot of improvement in our domestic sectors, because if demand is more, profit is more employment, so many benefits we can get out of it. And UK is also going to get a lot of benefit because of it. And also we can see many hubs we are going to create because of it. Like in textile, the tariffs are gone. So we can have more hubs in India. Like we have different cities like Bhadoi, Panipat for textile. For pharmaceuticals, we have Ahmedabad, we have Hyderabad. So these centers, they can be more developed. They can provide more employment. So it is going to provide benefit to India, be it the volume, be it these sectors which are emerging.
I'll just add one point.
Yes, sir.
So, though the target for the trade is from 54 billion to 120 billion, that's really good. But immediately also, India shows that it is very much assertive. That means India can sign agreements with countries under pressure. So, this is a very important aspect, which it's a sign of strength. That too, when countries like US are coming up with tariffs. So this shows India can align its trade with any country it wants in the way it wants to, which is beneficial for the national interest of the country. And that itself is a benefit for India in the international platform right away. But of course, the other benefits will take a long time. Of course, the way it is implemented and many other factors come in, as far as the trade increasing by 2030 from 54 to 120 billion. So, but first thing is, it right now, yes, this deal gives a positive sign, and it says yes, India can sign deals outside the regular frameworks, and that too under pressure when countries like US are going ahead with tariffs. So that's a good thing.
It definitely shows a lot in part of being a mature trade negotiation being done. Right? Aditya sir, we have talked about what can be gained from this FTA, but are there some blind spots in this FTA that can be worrisome?
I hope that there are no blind spots. Blind spots is something that you can't prepare for, but certainly risks. Risk certainly would be there. Like sir mentioned earlier about green aspects. So there is something called as CABM, CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So certain risk. So from 2027 onwards, EU and UK, they are going to kick in these measures to prevent carbon intensive goods to enter their territory. So an additional tax upon carbon intensive goods. 60% of India's power comes from coal. So as a result, textiles made in India or anything made in India would naturally be powered mostly by coal. So they will have these mechanisms where they are going to impose, let's say, 10, 12, 15% additional tax on goods which use coal based power or have a high carbon footprint. If that happens, then again it would basically be that their part of the deal they are not going to keep. So India would be importing goods from them at 0% tax, and they would be imposing an additional carbon based tax. So naturally these things are going to, but we recognize these things, the government recognizes, and they are part of the FTA also, that India does reserve the right later on to renegotiate. This is in fact, this in my opinion is the most important thing. The previous FTAs that we have, so that's kind of being prepared for that blind spot. So previous FTAs that were there, they did not have provisions for renegotiation. These ones, this one has a provision for renegotiation. That's why it's setting up a beautiful template for future. That in case we see that these things are not being used in the spirit that they were signed, so then we reserve a right to renegotiate based on our own interest. Same thing with MSMEs also, again sir pointed out earlier. So our MSMEs would be finding it difficult to get licenses. So let's say in UK, we talk about, let's say, some food MSM, some food product. So a food product would need licenses, not just processed, but let's say Indian mangoes in UK. So they would also need some sort of licenses. Okay, they comply with the basic standards of hygiene. So it is difficult to get those licenses or those certificates. Indian MSMEs would find it difficult to get those certificates. So access to our industry to UK may not be as much as compared to UK's industry's access to us. So that's a kind of asymmetry that may affect us negatively. Hopefully, we are prepared for that.
So, generally, adding on to Sir's point, every trade agreement there is this problem. The country which is selling labor-intensive goods, these goods generally have a kind of an inelastic demand. Okay, but when we look at technology-related items, generally they tend to have elastic demand. So therefore, as incomes of people increase, there's a higher demand for their goods. This is obviously there. Second is, companies like IOCL are also spending a lot on green hydrogen. Right now they've started spending because of the government guidelines. So government also knows this, that in the future, and IOCL knows that it's going to make loss. And there's excessive spending on that. and adhering to the fuel guidelines. I mean, you're flying across Europe, and not only Europe and subsequently to other countries. It's a huge ask for countries like India, adhering to these guidelines. Another important aspect is when cars are moving into India, UK cars, the EV revolution when we talk about. So India is weak as of now with respect to EV revolution. So India has to work a lot on EV revolution. Otherwise, of course, one big player is China. So EV transmission, EV revolution happening through China. And we are a little weak in that. And tomorrow we can face a problem unless and until we align with it. But as Sir was talking about renegotiation, and that is definitely good. So when we look at MSMEs as such and very critically look at MSMEs adhering to the guidelines which are pushed by UK or to for that matter US, these countries, European countries, adhering to these guidelines itself is little tough for Indian companies. So Indian MSMEs have to work a lot in terms of reaching those targets. So these things put additional pressure as far as India is concerned.
And this renegotiation clause, it becomes very important, especially the global economic climate that is there between various countries nowadays.
Yeah.
It must be there for most of the FTAs we go forward now with other countries also. Brijesh sir, would you like to add to the risk and challenges that you see will be there for this particular FTA?
So these are the risks like MSME and EV sector as sir mentioned. So for that, for MSME, what can be done? Like capacity building, what government can do, what government can offer so that they can align to the demands. Otherwise, big companies will become more bigger and these MSMEs will be wiped out or renegotiations. That can be the case. For EV also the same thing. What we need to do? We need to do innovation. We need to be more competitive. So it is some time is there. So in that, if they innovate, they are being more competitive, they can compete with them. So that's it. These are the risks we can see because of this deal.
So looking forward now to the potential we have seen the challenges. What does the Indian government do from here in terms of policy to support this trade agreement and to nurture our industries towards a better result from this?
So looking at a wider scale, this is not just an agreement in terms of reducing tariffs. It's an agreement where India wants to become part of the global value chain. So that's a very critical factor which I think India is looking at as far as this trade deal is concerned. So right now it is very important for India to expand its manufacturing. India does not want to be a assembling hub. India has to become a manufacturing hub. So India has to evolve to that stage. And for that, India, it becomes important where we are contributing in the global value chain. In which area? Are we only assembling or are we going ahead above assembling? So this trade deal actually, I think, will push that particular aspect, and Indian government also has this in mind moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, certainly yes. You look at India and UK's trade. UK is not one of the largest partners that we have. So our trade with UK dwarfs in comparison to our trade with China or US or EU or even let's say Middle Eastern countries. So UK is an important trading partner, but certainly not the biggest trading partner that we have. But still, as I said earlier also, UK is a far more advanced, technologically advanced society as compared to us, industrially advanced, income-wise far bigger than us. Right now we are here, the UK is certainly at a higher level. This opens doors for us to reach at that level. So as sir is saying that we have to move up the value chain. So this is our opportunity to move up the value chain. We can manufacture for example high value goods by competing with other countries, industrially advanced countries, kind of entering their turf now. Yes, we have advantages, they have advantages, but kind of we are now going to compete in a fairer manner with them. So certainly I would have hopes, but at the same time, what can we do further on? It all boils down to ultimately the stability of policies that we have, whether there is an entrepreneurial culture in the country, risk-taking culture in the country. And just last point I'd like to, because I use that word renegotiation of FTAs, I just point this out that if every contract had a renegotiation clause, then the contract would become useless. So we have to be very careful about when do we see renegotiation. It can't be based on, then the contract would lose its entire value. So we have to be very careful about our assessment. It can't only be based on we say no, you are exporting more to us, we are exporting less to you, and hence it's not beneficial for us. So let's renegotiate. That can't be the case. We will have to work hard in order to get this to be working for
Need
us.
to have an intent of deal.
Yes, yes,
We cannot have an intent of renegotiation.
yes. We can't have an intent of renegotiation. Yeah.
Brijesh sir, what can we do in terms of policies?
See, that is why if we are renegotiating the terms, so already we are told that we are very hard negotiator. So if you are doing these things, again the same tag will come. So what can be done? Like the sir has said, we need to work more on capacity building. Like what can be the things with which we can improve our domestic sectors, be it textile, be it manufacturing sector, be it services, whatever it is. In services, we are doing very well. Like if we talk about the data, like if we are exporting, more than 50% we are exporting to US. Sorry, the UK. So services sector we are doing very good, but manufacturing sector and other industries we are not doing very well because of inherent situations. And also the concern is AI, but AI is not there in manufacturing. AI is in services. In manufacturing, AI can come in future in terms of robots and other things. But for India, basically what we need to do in terms of policy or supporting Indians, the industries, that would be the capacity building, the environment provided to them. Indian government should work on these things.
So the way forward is not to look this in a silo and to focus on, as sir you mentioned, that we need to see where we fit in this global value chain and to develop competence in that particular field and focus upon manufacturing. That will help to gain the benefit of this FTA also.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for this detailed discussion on UK India FTA. So, aspirants, I hope now you have a very good idea of what is this India UK FTA and what are the gains, what are the opportunities, and what can be the challenges in it. For more such detailed discussions, stay tuned to Vision IS The Perspective. Thank you.